What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with a box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw the movie Smile posting, as it says here from Deadline, the best second weekend hold for any R-rated film, second only to the film Get Out. But it's even more impressive than that just because of how much it decimated all of the new films of release. There were two new films that got released. One was a, seemingly Paddington-type story where there's an animated character within the real world, whereas the other one was a David O. Russell film filled to the brim with big-name actors, and guess what? No one went to go see it, which just goes to show that just because actors or a specific actor or group of actors are in a movie does not guarantee in today's box office that people are going to go see it, because people are a lot more careful with how they spend their money. We'll talk about this and plenty of other films, including some updates on actual box office budgets for one movie that I've been waiting on for a while, and some of the updated numbers as they currently stand. So when we go to the numbers, as you can see, Smile domestically just wiped out the competition, a 22% drop in its second week of release. This is very similar as far as percentages are concerned to the kind of drop we saw with Top Gun Maverick. What this means is that the word of mouth campaign on this is actually very, very good. Making 17.6 million means that its total domestic is now up to 49.8 million. And if it has these kind of drops going forward, including in the midst of bigger competition, when we finally in a couple weeks get the release of Black Adam, which is the next major, huge budget movie set to come out, this could be that little film, right, with a smaller budget and a very specific audience that it's going towards that could continue to make money over the course of time. And while it's already made its money back, end up making even more profit to boot when everything is all said and done. So a $4,800 per theater number there. Very impressive numbers, to say the least. Not nearly as impressive, though, are the films that came in at the number 2 and 3 spots. We have Lyle Lyle Crocodile from Sony, which again is this animated character based off of a book series that has been brought into real life. It's a character that can't speak but can sing. And it has the music of Pasek and Paul, who have had hit and misses. They're the same people that did The Greatest Showman, which I think had a pretty good score. And they also did La La Land, which I think had a pretty terrible score. So it seems that audiences and families aren't really being drawn out to go see this overall, this movie overall. Coming out at over 4,300 screens. That's a pretty sad number, to be perfectly honest. Coming in the number 3 spot is that film Amsterdam. That is the new David O. Russell film starring everyone and their mom, including Jeremy's favorite, Christian Bale. But even that is not enough to bring any money to this film. One of the many arguments that I have as to why I don't think that Mario Brothers film coming out next year is going to make $1 billion, but that's a video for a whole other day. Much love to you, Jeremy. Coming in the number 4 spot is The Woman King with $5.3 million. And even though people look into this movie saying, hey, it's not making all that much money, 54.1 million isn't all that impressive. Yes, but the 22% drop in the 4th week of release is. It's saying that, again, people are buying the propaganda around this film. People are not realizing or waking up to the fact that this film is pushing lies and fake history, and they are continuing to go out and to support it. Not to mention, this film has yet to release in several countries. It's got a very slow rollout internationally, and every single week we're going to see that international number begin to tick up more and more and more because it's going to have openings in those countries. Now, is it going to be enough to make its money back? It's hard to say at this point in time, but it is definitely moving in the right direction, as I believe it added overall about 10 million or so to its entire worldwide number. And so that may not sound a lot on paper, but when you're a film that costs $50 million and you have to make about 125 or so worldwide to break even, those kinds of numbers and that kind of direction is the right direction that you want to be going in. And so even though I can, of course, call out The Woman King's stupid story and just the nonsense and the propaganda being pushed about it, we still have to look at the numbers as they currently are and as they stand, and there is still definitely a chance internationally for this film to make up some of the ground it does not yet have here domestically. But domestically, the drop-offs, the holds, are actually pretty good for the most part. Don't Worry Darling dropping the number 5 spot here from Warner Brothers, another 49%. This film now, again, still making some money, and it's projected to have a good chance of making its money back, but with drops like 49%, it's kind of got to stay in that region, and actually probably a little bit better if it's going to get to its higher end of the projected numbers that I had for this movie. Regardless of that, if this film lost money, it wouldn't surprise me because Warner Brothers has struggled a lot. The fact that they pulled it from almost 800 screens tells me Warner Brothers does not believe in this movie, and so that's already a very bad place to be in the third week of its release. And so this is a movie, again, it could make its money back, but those kinds of numbers definitely make it a little bit more of a difficult process. Avatar coming in on the number 6 spot. Still don't quite understand the people going to see this trashy film. Barbarian coming in on number 7. Heard some pretty good things about this. Also having some pretty strong holds, even 5 weeks out. This film has been in the profitability territory for a while. We also have the second weekend numbers for Bros, which got a lot of controversy because apparently if you criticize the film or don't want to see the film, or have anything negative to say about the film, you must be homophobic, at least according to the mainstream media. And yet, the fact remains, this film, I can now say after 2 weeks of release, based off of the historical standards, 56% drop, not the worst drop in the world, but big enough that I can say this film will lose somewhere around $20 to $25 million when all is said and done. So this movie is set to be a box office loss, ergo a box office failure, and seeing that it is coming from the same minds of people like Trainwreck and Bridesmaids, which I personally am not a big fan of either. Some people kind of split on that, saying that they like Bridesmaids, but Trainwreck was not. Trainwreck was just a complete and utter train wreck and just terrible. This is what happens when you have a bunch of male feminists, really, I think, getting involved in projects, making a movie where the basic premise is, oh, it's a rom-com, but they're gay. That's not enough to make a movie off of. And in fact, that should be insulting to most people because it's showing that they don't really care about telling a good story. All they care about is trying to say, hey, look, we care, when in reality, they don't. Showing us that they do care, though, is Paramount's portrayal of Top Gun Maverick, which is still hanging around even after 20 weeks of release. It's kind of insane at this point that this film is still getting as much money as it is still out in as many theaters as it is, but it's also not because of how strong the film actually is. So 800,000 there. As you can see, it's pretty much on the way out, and it's pretty much capped out on about the amount of money it's going to make. Bullet Train, same story. DC Lego Super Pets, same story. That's 600 screen for both of these films, right? And the 1,000 screens for Bullet Train means these films are essentially done making money, which is why I can think now I can pretty much put the nail in the coffin and say DC Lego Super Pets, though it was definitely having a strong run towards the end, the chances of it making its money back really just aren't in the cards for the film. Looking at worldwide numbers, Smile is at $89.8 million, so easily going to pass $100 million by the end of next weekend. La La Crocodile only making $11.5 million domestically. That poster alone, I think, is going to make a lot of people go cringe. Even though the story might be good in the actual kids' book, just because you have a good kid's story does not mean that it's one that you need to adapt into an actual live-action film or CGI live-action film. I guess it's just that concept, again, of Hollywood just being out of ideas. $11.5 million, though, based off of the budget for this movie, is not a good start. Not nearly as bad, though, as Amsterdam, only making $10 million in its opening weekend worldwide. As you can see, Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Chris Rock, Anya Taylor-Joy, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, Timothy Olyphant, Taylor Swift is in the film, Rami Malek is in the film, and Robert De Niro. You have, again, tons of actors in here, whether you like all of them or not. You can't deny that those are some of the biggest names in Hollywood today, and yet this film only made $10 million in its opening weekend, and based off of an $80 million budget, likely will end up being a box office flop. This is yet again another one of those examples as to why anyone who says, oh, well, movie stars sell tickets, or, oh, it's because of this person in this movie that this film was as successful as it was, it just really isn't true, because if any film is going to do well, if that standard were actually true, that stars still have power, that Christian Bale, for instance, right? A lot of people like Christian Bale just as a performer, you know, and recognize that he has that star presence about him. People, we would say, argue, or would have to argue that, oh, well, you have Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, those two alone at the very top, not just to mention all of the other people in there, this should be a guaranteed hit. That's just not the case anymore, though. You need to have a film that is going to be able to compel general audiences to actually want to go out and go to see it, because people are being a lot more careful with their money. We're in the midst of a recession. Cost of gas has gone up a lot. Cost of ticket prices have gone up a lot. We have all of these factors that have gone into it, and ultimately, people are going to be much more careful. Doesn't mean they won't spend their money. Spider-Man No Way Home, great example, right? That film did insanely well. You look at Top Gun and Maverick, right? Getting close to $1.5 billion by the end of its run. People will absolutely go out to see films they think that are worth going to see. But just having this cast alone, the name Amsterdam, people don't know what this film is about. unless you've seen the trailer and unless you know anything like about the actual, story, you have no idea what's going on here. And so I can understand why no one went to go see it, because even I haven't seen a trailer for this movie. All I know is that it's got a lot of actors in there that I kind of like. Anya Taylor-Joy, I think, is a fantastic actress. I'm a big fan of Michael Shannon, just his performance in general. There's a couple others in there that I think are okay, but in the end, it's just not, again, it's not enough. You need to have an actual story to bring people out. Woman King is also showing us, though, that the Hollywood propaganda machine can absolutely make a film successful if it truly wants to be, right? If the same PR machine behind this movie was that behind Amsterdam, if they were trying to push some type of political element, I imagine that they could probably see somewhat of a closer or higher success as Woman King is. But again, do not be misled by anyone saying that this film is a massive failure or a massive flop. It is continuing to add on every single week. It is adding to other countries over the course of the next several weeks as well. And because of that, this film's make or break is going to be dependent upon how much money this makes in countries like the UK, how much it makes in Australia, how much it makes in Hong Kong, right? These markets where it might just make a few $1 million here or there, that adds up over time. And it is about halfway to its break-even point. And based on the drops that we're seeing domestically, that 22% hold from week to week, I mean, I'm just saying, right? The numbers are there. The math works out, the math pans out where this film could end up making its money back. But as you can see right now, we're only getting numbers as far as the charts are concerned on thenumbers.com from just 3 countries. But this film is going to have releases in the United Kingdom, right? So we're still going to be waiting on some numbers for that. So remember that the way it works for the numbers is that usually their international number in general just updates automatically, but then it takes them a little bit longer to add it to their actual charting. But hey, how well does this film do in its second weekend in the United Kingdom? How well does it do in Mexico, where it comes out next weekend, right? Mexico can be a pretty big market for some films. Will it be enough? Again, I think that over time, if you have just a very small amount in several countries, of which this is coming out in several countries, you could still see this movie make its money back. And so, again, this is not a similar situation as we can say for a movie like Bros, where it's up to $8.8 million, doesn't have that same type of trajectory where it's opening up in major countries. So this film, we can absolutely say, is going to be a flop based off of the drops that we're seeing and just based off of the lack of interest in the actual movie itself, and that this film is not going to be an international film by any means, whereas The Woman King, you can see that there would be and could be some international appeal in certain countries for this property. Don't Worry Darling is, again, pretty much stalling out here, but the question is, how much is it going to stall? As you can see on the chart, it is just starting to dip below its initial projections for the domestic totals. So this film absolutely has the chance of making its money back, but it also has the chance of losing a little bit of money. It's not going to be a major flop based off the numbers that we currently have, but whether it makes its money back or not is still something that remains to be seen. Barbarian continuing to make money, though, $38.2 million off a very small budget, so kudos to them for that. Bros, as I mentioned, $8.8 million. So even though projections-wise it's not doing terrible, no one's going to see this film. So its projections are based off of the fact that it had a very small start, and the drop off ended up being about 50%. But ultimately, especially as more films start to come out, and especially when you have films like Black Adam start coming out, you're going to start to see a lot more people go like, yeah, you know what? This film is pretty much not anywhere on my radar. And I think you're going to start to see even further drop offs. Top Gun Maverick up to 1.47. The numbers is actually behind on this one. Bullet Train, again, still have broken even. DC Lee Super Pets close to $200 million, but again, it's pretty much done. One update that I have to give is that IMDb is reporting that the estimated budget for this film is $40 million for See How They Run, meaning that this film is a financial flop, but it is an estimated budget and no one else is reporting upon it, so take that number with a grain of salt. We actually go to the box office tracking because, hey, we like to do box office tracking here on Geeks and Gamers using the OMB Reviews website. Check out ombreviews.com if you want to do tracking yourself. But based off of these second weekend numbers, right, for films like Smile and Bros, where you can project that the film is going to make somewhere between Smile is going to make somewhere between 128 and 179, Bros somewhere between 12 and 17. So very, very different stories there. Whereas Smile is expected to make somewhere between 51 and 82 million in net gain profit, Bros is expected to lose anywhere between 25 and 22 million by the end of its run. Currently, as we stand, it is at 27 million in the red, with no real hope of it being able to, make that up in any way. Whereas Smile is at 28.4 million in the black. So very impressive numbers there. For newcomers, Amsterdam right now, because of its budget of $80 million, this film is at 114 million in the red. When you take into account marketing and the fact that studios don't get 100% of their receipts, whereas Lyle Crocodile little smaller budget, but still large enough, 68.1. So not a very good start for these movies in any way whatsoever. You look at The Woman King, though, it's at 44 million in the red, 74% compared to its first 2 weeks, but it is slowly chipping away at that and absolutely could see it surpass that at some point in the future because of international releases, whereas Don't Worry Darling is only 10.9 million in the red, and so this is still early enough in its release where it could also end up making that money up over time. And those are pretty much the main numbers to update for y'all today. So have you seen the new films, Lila Crocodile, Amsterdam? And what are y'all's general thoughts about Smile? Do you think that it's good word of mouth? Do you think it's the creepy marketing campaign that is continuing to be very effective? And then also, what are y'all's thoughts about the Bros controversy? I think that it's just Hollywood continuing to shoot themselves in the foot when they prioritize identity politics over actually starting with a good story. And also, what are your thoughts about Don't Worry Darling, Woman King? Those seem to be two movies that I imagine some people might disagree with. Clearly, I think more people probably can see the track that Don't Worry Darling can take, seeing that it only is 10.9 million in the red. Whereas I think if you look to when you look to a movie like The Woman King being at 44 million in the red, some people might not quite yet get why I'm projecting that film to potentially make its money back, but it all comes down to it's just released in a major market in the United Kingdom, and it still has yet to release in places like Mexico and other countries as well. And I think just over time, if it has that slow drip effect of just a little bit over time, it could still make up that money. It could still make up that overall missing money at this point in time. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash the like button, live the fire button, live that, smash the Rumble button. I think we're over on Rumble as well. So check out all of our channels, check out our locals as well, where we are always having a lot of fun. I like to put random polls in there from time to time and see how people are feeling about the general state of movies. So you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.